let's move on to the last module, which is module 42. And this is assessing personality, determining what makes us distinctive. So now anytime we talk about assessment, we're talking about how we measure or how we do research, let's say, in personality. So we have two major questions that we're going to answer in this module. One is, how can we most accurately assess personality? And the second one is, what are the major types of personality measures? So let's start off talking about psychological testing. Psychological tests are standard measures that are devised to assess behavior objectively. So they are used by psychologists to help people make decisions about their lives and understand more about themselves. And of course, as we should do with any type of testing or measurement that we use with any type of research, we need to look at reliability and validity. Reliability is that the test measurement is consistent. Validity is whether a test measures what it is designed to measure. So a test should always be both reliable and valid. We also want to look at the norms, which are the standards of test performance. And you want to make comparisons possible. So we want to first look at self-report measures of personality. The self-report measure is where you gather data about people by asking them questions about their own behavior and traits. One of the most well-known personality tests, which are self-measurable, is the MMPI-2RF, which is the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory 2 restructured form. So it is the MMPI-2RF. This is a very widely used self-report test that identifies people with psychological difficulties. It is very well known in the psychological field, the MMPI, and it is employed to predict some everyday behaviors. We also want to look at test standardization. This is validating questions on personality tests by analyzing responses from people with the same set of questions under the same circumstances. And this can be used to compare responses and determine an individual's characteristics. Now, with the self-report measures of personality, other self-report measures that are known, the biggest one is that MMPI. Some other well-known self-report measures, one is the Cooter Career Interest Assessment as a Likert scale, that is the KCIAL, and this measures the relative level of interest a person has in 6 broad areas. Another well-known assessment, self-report, is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. And this aims to place people along 4 dimensions. Those 4 dimensions are introverts versus extroverts, intuitors versus sensors, thinkers versus feelers, and then 4th, perceivers versus judgers. So those are the self-report measures. Now, we also have the projective methods. Now, the projective personality test is a test in which a person is shown an ambiguous stimulus and asked to describe it or tell a story about it. The most well-known of these projective tests is the Rorschach test, which you may have heard of previously. It involves showing a series of symmetrical visual stimuli to people who then are asked what the figures represent to them. They may be completely elusive. They may make no sense whatsoever, right? However, you're going to ask someone to look at this picture and describe what it means to you. And then as a trained therapist, you're going to be able to tell something about that person's personality based on how they describe what's occurring in that picture. Another type of projective personality test is the TAT, or the thematic apperception test. This consists of a series of pictures about which a person is asked to write a story. So, similar to the Rorschach test, except for with the thematic apperception test, it is an actual figure. It is not nonsense. So you are showing them an actual picture and then getting you to tell a story about it. The test with the ambiguous stimuli require a high degree of training, skill, and care in their interpretation. So you have the projective personality test, which best known as the Rorschach test, and then you have the thematic apperception test. Now, in the last slide of this chapter, we're looking at behavioral assessment. Behavioral assessment is direct measures of an individual's behavior that are used then to describe the personality characteristics. Behavioral assessment is particularly useful for observing and eventually remedying specific behavioral difficulties such as shyness in children. And it's also used to make hiring and personnel decisions in the workplace whenever you're looking at behavioral assessment. Okay, that is chapter 13 on personality.